who has joined us to the 2023 Squares Vermont Outreach and Policy Conference. You've joined the session Shopping with 3Squares Vermont, a closer look at local food incentive programs. This session will run from 10:15 to 11:30, and I want to let you know that this session is being recorded. I'm Ivy Enoch. I'm a food security specialist at Hunger Free Vermont, and I will be your host for the session. So I just want to begin with some group conduct, which I'm sure will be familiar to most in this age and world of Zoom. But we just ask that you please keep your audio muted to avoid distractions. We invite you all to introduce yourselves in the chat. You can include your name if you're associated with an organization and your title. And this will help us keep attendance for the session, but also let us and you all know who is in the room. We will be taking questions at the end, and we invite you to write those in the chat as well. During the Q&A, you are also, if you would like to unmute yourself and ask your questions, we just ask that you type stack, and we'll be keeping a speakers list. And lastly, we just ask that you join us with grace and with humor. The virtual conference world is new for many of us, and we all know that sometimes technology doesn't cooperate. And so we really thank you in advance for your patience. We are going to begin this session with a grounding and a land acknowledgement from Hunger Free Vermont's Executive Director, Honor Horton.
Hello. On behalf of everyone at Hunger Free Vermont, welcome to the 2020 3Squares Vermont Outreach and Policy Conference. We really wish we could all be with you in person today, but let's be connected anyway from wherever we are in Vermont. I don't have to tell you that this is a time of crisis. 1 in 4 Vermonters are experiencing hunger and food insecurity during this pandemic. People of color are 4 times as likely as white people to be experiencing hunger in Vermont right now. Women are twice as likely to be experiencing hunger as are men. And households with young children are also twice as likely to be experiencing hunger in Vermont right now than households without young children. We're all here today because we're committed to reducing the suffering and harm of hunger. We're looking ahead to what we know is going to be a really tough winter. And we know that when all the food box and restaurant meal programs have expired, 3Squares Vermont is the stable foundation of food security for so many people in our state. It is a true privilege to be engaged in this work with you. Know that Hunger Free Vermont is here to support you and to fight like hell to expand and protect and defend the federal nutrition programs that serve so many. Even though we're not all physically together in one place today, we are all on unceded land stewarded by the Abenaki peoples for thousands of years. Let's honor that truth by using what we learn here today to respectfully serve all the peoples of Vermont and to work to end not just hunger, but the systemic injustices that cause hunger. Thank you for the profound difference you make, and may you be well.
One more hearty welcome to all of our guests here. Thank you so much for joining me and my wonderful co-presenters today to learn about shopping with 3Squares Vermont and local food incentives. We'll be touching on a range of incentive programs from direct markets to regional co-ops and retailer programs. My co-presenters will introduce themselves in finer detail as we move into their topic areas today. And I'm going to kick us off. As I briefly introduced myself earlier, I'm Ivy Enoch, a food security specialist at Hunger Free Vermont, and I'm new to the staff. I joined in August, and since then I have had the immense privilege of working with and learning from amazing colleagues and partners these last few months. And I hope I can answer as many questions as arise today If neither I nor my distinguished co-panelists are able to, I will promise to bring them back to my team and follow up with you. But what I'm going to talk about today is kind of a grounding in why we're all here and why this work is important, and that is hunger in Vermont. And then I'm going to give a 3Squares Vermont overview, which is at the 30,000 foot level. I'm going to talk about how to shop with 3Squares Vermont, and then move into the importance of incentive programs. We are all here because we recognize and care about the injustice of hunger. Everyone has a right to access at all times nourishing, fresh, and culturally relevant food. And yet 1 in 4 Vermonters since the onset of the pandemic don't have that right. 1 in 4 Vermonters are food insecure. And that reality, as Anor mentioned, is even more staggering for our friends of color, for people with children, and for women. And the root causes of hunger don't stem from a shortage of food, but from systemic inequities, such as inaccess to fair wages, affordable health care, housing, and education. But 3Squares Vermont is our first line of defense against hunger, and local food incentives are an important support to hunger alleviation. So what is 3Squares Vermont? And I know we have a range of folks in the room with knowledge and expertise on this, but just in broad brushstrokes, 3Squares Vermont is a federal nutrition program of the US Department of Agriculture, or the USDA. It's known nationally as SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and was known formerly as food stamps. But in 2009, states in the US were given the chance to choose a name, and Vermont chose 3Squares Vermont to underscore the goal and importance of 3 square meals for all Vermonters a day. In Vermont, 3Squares Vermont is administered by the Department for Children and Families Economic Services Division. You may hear it referred to as DCF or DCF-ESD. And these are our partners who process applications and issue the benefits. 3Squares Vermont is an income eligible entitlement program, which is such a mouthful. And what I mean by that is it just means that everyone who is eligible for 3Squares Vermont is entitled to its benefits. There is not a finite number of Vermonters who can participate in 3Squares Vermont. And when someone is participating in 3Squares Vermont, they're not taking the place of someone else. They're not taking away benefits from anyone else. 3Squares Vermont is here for everyone when we need it, and that includes individuals, families, people with children, older Vermonters, college students, people with disabilities, or experiencing homelessness, are just among the few who can qualify. And on that note, how is eligibility determined? Nearly 70,000 Vermonters are currently enrolled in 3Squares Vermont benefits, but we know more are eligible. And eligibility for 3Squares Vermont is determined by household size, composition, and gross monthly income. And you'll see that grid in the center of the screen here. That shows, again, that equation of household size and gross monthly income that eligible Vermonters must meet. And those numbers are based off of the 185% federal policy poverty level. And those are updated annually on the 1st of October. So these just came out. When we talk about a 3Squares Vermont household, we're referring to this definition on the right here. A 3Squares Vermont household is one or more people who live together, who purchase and prepare meals together. Of course, there are some exceptions and special rules apply for older Vermonters or for people who have disabilities. And as I mentioned, DCF are the folks who determine eligibility and ultimately enroll participants. And when participants are approved, they'll receive a monthly dollar benefit based on net income and expenses. The EBT card, the electronic benefits transfer card. So again, once folks are approved for 3Squares Vermont, they will receive an EBT card in the mail. And this is the card that all of the 3Squares Vermont benefits are automatically loaded onto at the first of every month. And just for numbers, for a pulse on this, the average monthly benefit per household is $216. In the case where someone doesn't use their entire benefit amount in a month, it just rolls over into the next month. So these benefits don't expire from month to month, they can accrue. And a person is typically approved for 3Squares Vermont benefits for up to a year before requiring recertification, though of course, the magic word, there are exceptions, and that includes older Vermonters and people with disabilities who can be approved for up to 36 months before requiring renewal. How to shop with an EBT card. So EBT cards are easy and anonymous. They provide a private shopping experience because they look exactly like a debit card. They serve the same purpose as a debit card, and they're swiped in the same machine as debit cards when shopping. And so a participant can just swipe their EBT card, and when prompted, the screen will give them the option to choose EBT food or EBT cash. And EBT cash is, again, for certain Vermonters with additional benefits on their EBT card or who get it as a cash benefit in their bank account. And while there are limits to what a person can purchase with 3Squares Vermont benefits, one of the key tenets to 3Squares Vermont is food choice. Individual people and households should have the right to choose which foods will work for their personal or family or children's dietary preferences or restrictions. And limiting food choice does not provide a dignified or humanized experience. And so what folks can buy with 3Squares Vermont benefits on their EBT card are fruits and vegetables, breads and cereals, dairy and meat, snacks, non-alcoholic beverages, cold prepared foods, seeds and seedlings that produce edible foods, and ice. And what folks can't purchase are things like soap, household products, pet food and supplies, alcohol or tobacco, hot prepared foods, or vitamins and supplements. And folks can use their EBT card and 3Squares Vermont benefits at over 600 retailers in Vermont. And that includes grocery and convenience stores, co-ops, natural food stores, and over 40 farmers markets, as well as participating farm stands. And it's important to note that 3Squares Vermont participants can use their EBT card anywhere in the US that EBT is accepted. And for many households, we know that their 3Squares Vermont benefits don't cover the cost of groceries for an entire month. And this is really why incentive programs, specifically local food incentive programs, are so important because they help people stretch their 3Squares Vermont benefits even further while subsidizing the cost of local foods. Local food incentives allow for greater food choice and increased access to culturally relevant food for all. And so programs like Crop Cash not only double the dollar to help folks buy fruits and vegetables, but seeds and seedlings as well, which just create another way in which people can choose the foods they want to eat, and in that case, the foods they want to grow. WIC's incentive Farm to Family Coupon Program is another wonderful example. They give eligible Vermonters $30 in coupons to spend at participating markets and percentage discounts on produce at local co-ops and natural food stores help stretch the budget at the grocery store. And so all of these programs complement each other and in many cases can be used in tandem, just further stretching the 3Squares Vermont dollar and purchasing power. These programs also support our local economy by keeping millions of federal dollars in our communities. And these local spaces also create community and connection. And these points are important outreach opportunities. They serve important outreach opportunities to those who are eligible, but not yet participating in 3Squares Vermont. So emphasizing the incentives, the benefits, of local incentive food programs can be one way to encourage someone to participate in 3Squares Vermont. It is now my true pleasure to hand things over to Emmett Mosley of NOFA Vermont, who will talk more about Crop Cash and other market incentive programs. Take it away, Emmett.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, Ivy. My name is Emmett Mosley, and I'm the Community Food Access Programs Coordinator at NOFA Vermont. So in case you don't know sort of what NOFA's role is in our state, we work to secure a socially just, environmentally sustainable, and economically viable food system for all Vermonters. And my work as Community Food Access Programs Coordinator really sits at the crux of the socially just and economically viable parts of our mission. And I'm going to talk today a little bit about our farmers markets, SNAP incentive program, Crop Cash, as well as our efforts to connect SNAP users with CSAs and farm stands. But first, I just wanted to stress that NOFA really is kind of the only organization or people in the state responsible for working directly with farmers and farmers markets to ensure that SNAP is available to their customers. So there's nobody at the Department of Agriculture or at DCF whose main job is to connect farmers and their consumers with these services. And it's really pretty foundational to all the incentive work that we do. As I said before, we have three main areas that we work to connect SNAP users with. That's our farmers markets, our farm stands, and our CSAs. CSAs are, stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and it's sort of a subscription model where a customer pays a farmer upfront for a certain amount of food, and then they receive a share of fruits, vegetables, or sometimes meat and dairy each week. Okay, so you can go to the next slide, Ivy. And why are direct markets important? So I think the COVID-19 pandemic has really illuminated some of these ways in which our small farmers and direct markets are really important for Vermonters. As you can imagine, they provide fresh, nutritionally dense food directly to customers. They're sort of a transparent way to purchase food in that you're very close to the point of production of the food. Farmers and farmers markets serve as a great source of knowledge for people to introduce them to new foods and to eat in season. The money that you spend at a farmer's market or in a CSA or a farm stand stays directly in your community. And really, when you compare similar quality food in a grocery store, prices at CSAs and farmers markets are actually quite competitive. I think we work against the idea that's out there that local food is much more expensive than sort of conventional food in the grocery store, and it's really not always the case. So NOFA really works hard to support these direct market farmers and farmers markets to connect with all consumers across the state. You can go to the next one. Oops. There we go. All right, so you see a little map here of our farmers markets. There's about 40 farmers markets around the state that currently accept SNAP. It's about 35 in the summer, and then another 15 that operates almost the whole year. And these are places that are pretty spread out throughout the state. So particularly during the pandemic, there's a lot of people who didn't feel comfortable traveling far distances, didn't want to be shopping inside with long lines, and we saw a real explosion in interest in our farmers markets and farm stands in particular during this time. So it just kind of illuminated another way that these are really critical access points for fresh food for all Vermonters. And so Crop Cash is the name of our nutrition incentive program. It's funded through a federal grant. And typically, Crop Cash functions to double a participant's SNAP dollar. So when you spend $10 in SNAP at a farmer's market, you will receive an extra $10 in Crop Cash to purchase fruits, vegetables, or edible plant starts at that market. However, this year, in response to the pandemic, we've actually doubled our incentive. So now, through October, through the end of the month, when a customer spends $10 in SNAP at a farmer's market, they'll actually receive $20 in crop cash coupons to spend at that market on fruits, veggies, and edible plants. All right, you can go to the next slide, Ivy. So this is just a little graphic here that sort of illustrates that that match. So we're matching the first $10 that a participant spends at the farmer's market in EBT. So typically a customer would walk into a farmer's market and see a market manager tent with a big banner that says EBT here. They would swipe their card at the machine and receive, say, $15 in $1 tokens. Those tokens can be spent on any SNAP eligible item at the farmer's market. So that includes meats, dairy, produce, bread, eggs, sort of all the staples that are SNAP eligible. And then they would receive, under normal circumstances, an extra $10, but this year, through the end of October, they'll receive $20 for which they can spend, which they can use to purchase additional fruits, vegetables, and edible plant starts. So you can go to the next slide. So there are a couple of limitations on the program. So when you receive your crop cash coupons at a farmer's market, they need to be spent at that same market. They don't have to be spent on the same day, but if you get them at the Newport Farmers Market, you need to redeem them at the Newport Farmers Market. So they last sort of until the end of April in the year that they were received, or at the last market date of the market where you receive them. So if the market ends October 1st, then the customer needs to use those coupons by October 1st. The second limitation is similar to shopping with SNAP tokens at a farmer's market. So you cannot receive any cash change. So most market vendors are pretty familiar with these restrictions, and they work hard to sort of round to the nearest dollar so that the customer doesn't end up losing any value there. And like I said, they need to be spent on fruits, vegetables, or edible plants. Market tokens can be spent on any SNAP eligible item. So you can go to the next slide. And so we produce some sort of shopping tips for customers as they're getting used to utilizing this program. So it really helps. You can receive crop cash each week at any market where you use it. So if you spend $10 a week, you're sort of maximizing the extra benefits that you're receiving from this program. And you can, if there's sort of, vegetables that come into season later on in the year, you can sort of hold your tokens and hold your crop cash. So if, say, you want to stock up on, tomatoes at a farmer's market in August and September, you can save your coupons from June and July, and then you can sort of purchase in bulk at that point. Or, you can use crop cash to try sort of to take some of the risk out of shopping at a farmer's market. I know a lot of the sort of heirloom seasonal type vegetables that are on display at a farmer's market may not be familiar to all customers. So when you use crop cash, you sort of take some of the risk out of that, because it's extra money that you wouldn't have had to spend on those things. And then you can sort of take a risk, and if it doesn't work, you haven't sort of wasted your limited resources. So when you receive crop cash, you can use that to buy all the vegetables first, and then you can save your tokens to use on foods that aren't eligible for crop cash, like meat and bread and eggs and dairy and those types of things. Right. You can go to the next slide. So the same federal grant that funds the crop cash program and funds a lot of our small farm support and farmers market support for SNAP, we use to expand our incentive programs to work at some farm stands and CSAs. So the farm stand program we call creatively our 3Squares Vermont Farm Stand Match Program. And then it also operates at CSA programs that we serve through our Farm Share program. I'll go into a little bit more detail of each of those. You can go to the next slide. So our Farm Stand Match program is currently operating at 3 farm stands around the state. And it's a really great deal for SNAP shoppers because it's just a 50% discount on any fresh vegetables or plants or fruits that they buy at that farm stand. So the customer just goes and shops normally. When they pay with their EBT card, any fruits, veggies, or edible plants are just at a 50% discount, and then NOFA reimburses the farm stand for the rest of the cost. And like Crop Cash, we really like this program because there's no sort of barriers. You don't have to show eligibility. You just use your EBT card. There's no application. There's no limit to how much you can buy on each shopping trip. So it's a lot more flexible for shoppers. And like Ivy was sort of stressing, free choice is such a cornerstone of food access that we really like this program. You can learn more about this on our website and find more information about the participating farm stands. The one thing that we really is a little tricky with the farm stand match program is that there has to be an employee present all the time to do a SNAP transaction. So that kind of limits the number of farm stands that we're able to serve, since the large majority of farm stands in the state aren't staffed all the time. They're mostly self-serve type of operation. It makes it a little bit difficult to really expand this program as far as we would like. I can go to the next slide, please. So these are the 3 farm stands that we're currently working with right now. So we have the BYCC farm stand in Richmond. We have the Digger's Mirth online store, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, and the Footbrook farm in Johnson. So we decided to get, sorry, can you go back? Yeah. So we decided to get a little bit creative. As I'm sure you know, SNAP transactions can't currently be processed online in the state. But because so many farmers during the COVID pandemic started to sell their product online directly to consumers, we wanted to find a way to make this work. So we decided to test this project with Digger's Mirth in Burlington. And they've basically just been offering the 50% discount through their online store. And then they process the person's EBT card when they deliver the food. So they took advantage of some of the state of Vermont's free mobile processing equipment for EBT cards. So that they can actually just show right up at the customer's door with their EBT machine and swipe the card there, so that customers can have some of that convenience for home delivery and online shopping that's become so common in our food system. And so far, it's been pretty successful for them, and we're hopeful that in the future we can sort of we can expand that to more farms who are selling online. And so that's the sort of farm stand side of things. And then talk a little bit now about NOFA's Farm Share program. So through our Farm Share program, we're able to offer a 50% discount on CSA shares to income eligible folks across the state. Our income eligibility guidelines are pretty similar to 3Squares. It's 185% in the federal poverty line, but we don't take verification. We don't look at pay stubs. It's just a self-declared statement of income. So for that, participants can get a 50% discount on their CSA share. And this sort of dovetails with our SNAP work in that it's allowed us to really do technical support for CSA farms to get their SNAP system set up. And now we're able to say that there's about 20 CSA farms around the state that offer SNAP as a way for their customers to pay for their CSA shares. And typically that's done in monthly installments because a sort of full upfront cost of a CSA share is a little prohibitive for most SNAP users. But the way the program works is that applicants apply directly to NOFA, and we sort of see which farm they want and how much their share will cost. Based on our funding availability for that year, we approve or deny people, and then we pass them off to the farms. And the farms also do some fundraising from their community and CSA members to help subsidize the cost of the CSA for the customer. And I should say that this year we're on track to subsidize about 500 CSA shares across the state at about 45 farms, which would serve about 1,500 individuals with really high quality food. And we've heard from folks that particularly during the pandemic, the idea of having access to a CSA share really brings that whole idea of food security home, in the sense that when you've got a subscription that's a 20 or 30 week supply of food, you really feel confident that you have a good supply of healthy food sort of locked in, particularly during this winter when, we're not really sure what the experience of shopping in a grocery store is going to feel like. It may be similar to last year where there's a lot of anxiety around that. So you can go to the next slide. And sort of just to wrap up here before I hand off to my colleagues from the co-ops in Vermont, we've produced a lot of materials to sort of explain how this program works. They're all available on our website at nofavt.org/cropcash. And certainly you can reach out to me directly to learn more as well. So it just helps consumers and market managers and service providers sort of explain how crop cash works. Since it can be a little bit confusing, all of the different currency types. But with that, I'm going to hand it off to my colleagues from the co-ops.
Thank you, Emmett. And I will be the baton passer. Another distinct pleasure to introduce Caroline Aubrey and Emily Landenberger, who will talk more about healthy food access programs at Vermont co-ops.
Great, thanks, Ivy. Hi, everybody. I'm Caroline. I'm the membership manager in the community engagement office at City Market. And I'm just here to share perspectives on 3Squares and food access as it pertains to co-ops. And then I'll pass it off to Emily, who will then share the Middlebury's perspective and a little bit more about the co-op association. So Food for All programs are generally discount and membership assistance programs that help more shoppers afford healthy food and help stretch food budgets, increasing buying power for eligible Vermonters. So at City Market specifically, this is a big part of how we live out our mission as a co-op and just are able to support our community this way. So at City Market, anyone who qualifies for 3Squares Vermont, WIC, Supplemental Security Income or Social Security Disability Income are eligible for a Food for All program. Food for All members will receive a 15% discount in the produce and bulk section and a 10% discount on all their shopping store-wide. And with this program, Food for All members also receive free cooking classes in our teaching kitchen and discounts at local businesses. So many of the same benefits that members also receive. All right, next slide. Beyond the Food for All program, we have another complementary program at our co-op, and this is called our Co-op Basics program. It's a line of products that represent everyday low prices. So this fall, our purchasing team actually worked to add over 50 new items to this list, so bringing the total product count to over 400 items that are based at everyday low prices. And we reduced the margins on these products in order to maintain an accessible price point and designate these products with a logo that you see on that slide. And so this slide also kind of highlights how much Food for All members save by participating in this discount program. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So the donations and sponsorships, this is just to really quickly highlight how co-ops are in a unique position to go above and beyond just providing access to 3Squares Vermont or expanding food dollars that way, that we're in a unique position to be able to help with food access. And so this just highlights early on during the start of COVID-19, our Prepare Food team was able to connect with the city and help with their meals program. So we acted as a hub for local restaurants and coordinated donations and helped to distribute over 19,900 meals. And that's just a photo of the staff working with Feeding Chittenden. And then another great component of this work during the pandemic has been coordinating across departments to facilitate food donations to community outreach partners, and such as also working with Hands in the Family Room to deliver weekly donations of food to help their food assistance programs, and donating beans, rice, and other staples that were hard for food shelves to access during this time. So like those high demand products we were able to source and donate to some organization. So yeah, that's just kind of to highlight some of the unique positions we were in. We also worked with the Neighborhood Planning Association in the south end of Burlington to coordinate community food pickups by ordering and donating a lot of the food. And then we're there tabling to do outreach for the Food for All program. All right, next slide. So just quickly, I wanted to go over some innovations and around the Food for All program at City Market, and just how this is kind of, this program is at a lot of co-ops across Vermont, and that these programs are made. And when we were creating ours at City Market, we started with pretty extensive outreach and focus groups. And so really hearing from our shoppers what they would want from the program, what were the barriers to shopping at the co-op, and how we could use this program to diminish those barriers. So through focus groups and extensive surveying, really heard that a lot of what shoppers wanted was larger discounts, and a lot of people were buying produce in bulk from the co-op, so increasing the discount in the produce and bulk section. Outreach is a big part of what we do as well, now that the program is running. And this is just to share information about it and make sure that whoever is eligible for the program knows that they can be receiving this discount. And so one innovation that City Market did was we ran a bus campaign across the city of Burlington to share messaging that way. And then we've had some changes. So before and during COVID, we were visiting community outreach partners on a regular basis and tabling there, working with their clients to enroll people in Food for All program. And then you'll also see the photos like I talked about from the meal distribution event in the South End that the South End community or South End City Councilors hosted. They distribute over 200 bags of food over, and that was 200 bags of food once a month for 3 months, I believe. And also gift cards for City Market along with that. And so some important changes that we were able to do to adapt our Food for All program during COVID was we had made the renewal and sign up process a lot easier by accepting over the phone and email renewals. So people did not have to feel like they needed to come in to renew their membership. And then we also offered Food for All participants free delivery fee, so waive the delivery fee. In the future for City Market, we really hope to work with, do additional outreach, but also create future partnerships. So you'll hear from Emily some things that other co-ops across the region are doing that I also, as a City Market representative, look forward to seeing how we can bring that to Vermont. All right, and now I'll pass it off to Emily from Middlebury Co-op.
Hi, everybody. My name's Emily. I'm the Assistant Manager of Marketing, Education, and Membership at the Middlebury Co-op. And as Caroline did such a great job describing, we too have a Food for All program. It's a member assistance program for participants in our SNAP, WIC, home heating assistance, clients of our local food shelves, Women's Safe, and the Open Door Clinic. We currently have 280 member owner households in our community that take advantage of the Food for All program. And we've had the program in place since 2012. Participants have their membership subsidized. They enjoy all of the same member benefits as any other member owner of the co-op. They're able to enjoy free enrollment to all of our co-op classes and workshops. And then they are able to receive discounts at 20 other participating businesses around town. Go to the next slide. So our healthy food access efforts are part of a larger effort through the Neighboring Food Co-op Association. So one of the unique things about cooperatives is that they're owned by their community members, and we exist to meet the specific needs of the communities that we serve. This level of autonomy and independence allows cooperatives to be really pioneering and innovative in their approach to serving their respective communities. But of course, when you have big dreams of relocalizing a food system and building a more resilient cooperative economy and furthering the ideals of democracy, cooperation, autonomy, and education, it's advantageous to be able to call on some collective source of wisdom and avoid duplication of effort with other like-minded organizations that share our bold vision of the future. So that's where the NFCA comes in for us. Basically, they're a regional co-op made up of all of us tiny food cooperatives. And NFCA helps us achieve a lot of things together that would be pretty difficult to achieve on our own. So you can go to the next slide. NFCA works together with food co-ops across the region and helps create their healthy food access programs to increase access to healthy food and increase member ownership in our communities. And they're partnering with food security organizations to make that possible. So big shout out to Hunger Free Vermont for all their partnership and advocacy toward that end. NFCA was instrumental in the development of our Food for All program at the Middlebury Co-op, and they also provide us with regular opportunities to collaborate with other food co-ops throughout the region, just to discuss ways to improve our program, share ideas for outreach and increasing accessibility, discuss best practices, and share success stories. So that's really pivotal to making our programs really successful. Move to the next slide. Because our co-ops are able to focus on meeting the needs of our communities instead of just having to focus on our bottom line, people over profits is what we're all about, and it allows us to be flexible and innovative when unmet community needs come up. And as you can see on this slide, our collective impact in this region is really pretty powerful. $729,000 in additional discounts distributed to people on limited incomes, 4.9 million distributed to members in discounts and patronage rebates, and 789,000 in donations to community organizations. You can move to the next slide. For us, these programs are all about partnerships. So partnerships with the NFCA, but also partnerships with local organizations. I've given some examples here of some programs that we have in place with our local food shelves, HOPE and CBOEO. So one of the things that we were able to do in March when the pandemic began, we made the decision to host an ongoing roundup to benefit HOPE and CBOEO until the crisis was over. We normally host a quarterly roundup rally for change where customers going through the checkout line can round up their total to benefit a local nonprofit organization working with at-risk populations. And then we match those donations. The list of beneficiaries typically rotates, but like I said, starting on March 1st, we decided that we needed to begin and host an ongoing rally until the crisis is over. And so far that's generated about $5,000 for our local food shelves. Uncashed patronage dividends was another big way that we've been able to pass along a lot to our local food shelves. So patronage dividends are a traditional way for co-ops to share their profits back with their members. And member owners of the co-ops also own the profits, and the patronage dividend system allows us to share and reinvest those profits in a transparent and mutually beneficial way. And so member owners receive a share of profits in proportion to how much they purchased at the co-op during the year. And then at the end of the year, member owners have the option of donating their patronage checks to the local food shelves. Many choose to do this. And then any patronage dividend checks that are not cashed within a specified window are automatically donated to our food shelves. So that generated, over $12,000 last year. And we're still calculating the number for this year. I think we just reached the check cashing deadline. And then we were able to donate 7 tons of aftermarket food to our food shelves this past year. These donations are things that aren't fit for retail sale, but are still perfectly healthy and wholesome. So think of things like blemished produce, mispicks, which are things that are erroneously arrive from our distributors and food producers when they make small mistakes on orders. Food that's reached its sell-by date but doesn't pose a risk to food safety, so things like day-old bread, baked goods, and it adds up to a lot over the course of the year. And we're grateful to have partners from HOPE and CBOEO who come and pick those up on a daily or weekly basis. And then we normally host an empty bowl dinner every November. Maybe some of you on the call have participated in one of those in the past, but of course, because of COVID, it's pretty tough to have a gathering where everybody comes together in a space to share soup out of bowls. And so we decided we would host a pottery auction instead. And that way we're still kind of bringing local potters together. They'll donate bowls and we'll set them up in our cafe seating area, which is no longer being used because of COVID. And shoppers who come in can bid on those bowls, and all of those proceeds will go to benefit the food shelves. You can move to the next slide, Ivy. Another key partnership for us in healthy food access is NOFA Vermont. So Emmett did a great job describing NOFA Vermont's farm share program. And so we decided in June, one of the ways that we could help support that program was to host a membership drive where we generated a $5 donation for every membership renewal or purchase toward that farm share program. And that membership drive donated $1,690 toward farm shares for community members in need. And then we participate annually in NOFA's Share the Harvest, which is also a program to benefit their farm share program. And that generated, that was just last week, and it generated just under $3,000. And I'd be remiss to not mention our partnership with Hunger Free Vermont. We maintain active involvement with our local Addison County Hunger Council, which works to address food insecurity in our community. Hunger Free Vermont is the backbone organization for this council and the 9 other councils throughout the state of Vermont. And it's my pleasure to serve as the co-chair of our Addison County Council. It allows me to stay current on the available resources in my community and engage with our co-op in as many of these initiatives as possible. And it's also a great opportunity for us to amplify Hunger Free Vermont's mission and strategies. And of course, we can't meet together like we are in this slide anymore, but we've been having for a while in the, during when the pandemic began, we were meeting weekly to figure out what we could do to address needs because things were changing so quickly. And then now we've moved more to back to a monthly meetup. But it's been really helpful to be part of this group of people in the community who are doing so many important things to alleviate food insecurity. And we're grateful to Hunger Free Vermont for that partnership. So where do we go from here? How do we continue to improve healthy food access, particularly during these times of unprecedented need? The expansion of SNAP incentive programs has proven very successful for our neighbors in Maine and New Hampshire. And we would love to see those programs expanded into Vermont, though we would need to create some really specific strategic partnerships to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Caroline, Emily, and Emmett. We are going to move into questions, comments, and opportunities for collaboration. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other here. And as I mentioned, folks can, just catching up on the chat here, folks can submit questions in the chat. If you would like to unmute yourself and ask your question, you can just type stack in the chat box, and I'll be keeping a speakers list. And while we wait for questions to come in, I have a question that I have fabulous panelists in front of me. I think many of you touched on the common stereotype that farmers markets and co-ops and natural food stores are expensive or for a certain kind of community member. But we all know they absolutely are not. And so what kind of language or kind of tips would you offer to service providers when talking to 3Squares Vermont participants and accessing these local food incentive programs?
That's a great question. I think with farmers markets, it can really just be like, just knowing that there's one in your community, here's when it's open, you can just go and walk around. Like you don't have to go buy anything there. You can just go and check it out and see, and that, just letting people know that there's people working really hard to make these programs work in these spaces, and we're trying to create this environment for your clients. It's not, that's the only reason we're doing it. So they may not always feel welcoming right at first if you've never been there, but I think just letting people know that there's a lot of people working sort of on their behalf to make these spaces better for them is a good place to start. But certainly, at least at a farmer's market, I mean, in normal times, they're meant to be social spaces. So you can really just go and check it out and walk around. And if it seems like something that's interesting to you, you can make the next step. But I think a lot of people, SNAP customers or not, feel like when they go to a farmer's market, they feel guilty if they don't buy something. But really, like, you can go and just sort of window shop at first. And there's no commitment. You can just show up and check it out.
I think for us, it's been more about going out and meeting people where they are. We realized that there are a lot of people who are going to feel intimidated to ever walk in the door. And if we just waited for people to show up to learn about the programs that we have available to them, that we'd really be missing the boat. And so we started doing a lot of outreach, going and setting up a Food for All drive at the food shelf, or setting up a Food for All drive at our local Turning Point Center. Going on tour with the Open Door Clinic to migrant farm communities and just introducing ourselves and saying, hey, we're here from the co-op. Here's some programs we have we think you might be interested in. We'd love to give you a tour, scheduling those kind of one-on-one and having people come in and walk through the store with me. I'm lucky to get to lead those tours. I find that once I get people in the door with me and start pointing out things in places where they can really save a lot of money, it starts to break down some of those barriers and make it feel more like a place that they could feel at home and make it feel more accessible to them. And I think that it just helps a lot to go out and just introduce yourself and be there in the spaces where you might meet people who might otherwise never come into the store.
Yeah, I'd agree absolutely with what Emily and Emmett said. I think being able to meet someone from the co-op just gives you a face that makes you have a connection, and knowing that the co-op is for anybody to shop at. It's not just not just for members. But the Pennywise pantry tours have been huge, just to be like, hey, City Market's really tiny and can feel cramped and claustrophobic at times, but it's easy to move around the space and find savings, like Emily has said.
Thank you. We have a question in, and it is, do all the members of the neighboring food co-op association provide the same programs as the Middlebury Co-op, or should we check out each member's website?
I think checking each co-op's website would be ideal, because we do collaborate on these programs and share a lot of ideas and best practices, but co-ops also love their autonomy and their independence, and because they're serving the needs of their immediate community, those needs are going to be different depending on the community. And so what works in Middlebury might not work at another co-op. And so they...
Oh, Emily, I think we lost you. Any other questions? I have another question. Emma, I would love to hear more about how the tripling of the 3Squares Vermont benefits has worked for this year. If you have numbers or stories from farmers market vendors or people who use crop cash, I would love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some sort of evidence in the kind of academic literature that the tipping point sort of for food incentives is sort of at this level that we've tried it now. In the past, we've always been able to just sort of match a sort of one-to-one, but we had a little bit of extra funding this year through our federal grant. And then because market attendance was down a little bit earlier in the summer, we had sort of some built up funding. So we decided, let's just try it. So we started in August. So we're running the promotion August, September, and October. I was able to look at data from just August and compare it to last year, and it looks like SNAP transactions are up by about 20% at our participating markets. So there's some pretty solid evidence there. And then just, I mean, we don't have complete data yet for September, but just anecdotally, my phone and email has just sort of been blowing up from market managers saying like, we need more coupons, like we're going through so many, like, you know, so I think anecdotally the traffic and interest in the program has gone up. And I think, you know, I mean, there's a lot of factors there. Part of it is that we were able to work with the Vermont Department of Health to actually promote the program through Front Porch Forum and some online advertising, which we've never really had the budget to do before. So I think, you know, it sort of goes to, you know, like what Emily was saying about meeting people where they're at to sort of get into every community and specifically talk directly to customers and tell them about this program, I think really helped. But also I think it's sort of just undeniable that the idea of sort of doubling or tripling your money has a pretty strong draw for somebody who previously thought maybe a farmer's market was out of reach price wise. So I'm really curious to see sort of, you know, to get the final numbers, but sort of our early data and our anecdotal evidence is pretty strong that that turnout and utilization of the program is way up. So it's just really a question of how do we sustain that level of incentive going forward? Because it's one of the things, you know, you sort of become a victim of your own success when the funding is somewhat limited to then create a huge amount of interest in the program to where you have to then sort of dial back the incentive because you need to maintain the funding. So, I mean, we've certainly, we're in discussions partly with Hunger Free and some other organizations about talking to the state legislature and seeing about securing sort of state funding for the program going forward that maybe could supplement some of the federal grant money that supports it right now. But, you know, that's a big unknown, certainly in terms of COVID. Budgets are going to be pretty challenging for the next couple of years, I would guess. So, so yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I mean, I should also say that we've been approached by different co-ops in different states quite a bit to sort of work on partnering, you know, and bringing these same types of incentive into the co-ops. And I think we're certainly happy to be part of those projects. It's just, it's more of a capacity issue, I think, at NOFA. Like, you know, I mean, we do about $70,000 worth of incentives around the state each year. And I mean, I think a single co-op could probably do that in a couple of months, you know, so it's like the scale, I mean, it would be phenomenal for our local food system and for SNAP users to have access to that. It's just a question of like, it's a pretty big project to pull it off. So we're excited to see it happen. It just like we would need to be a small player in a pretty big project to pull it off.
Thank you. We have until 11:30. I won't make us all sit here in silence, but I want to give folks just a few more minutes if they're thinking over the information they just absorbed. If you have questions or comments or thoughts or ideas about increasing access to local food, I welcome you to share that with us in the chat or simply unmute yourself. Before we get adieu a few minutes early, perhaps. So we do have one question, sort of a niche question. For the farm stand 50% off program, is there hope to make it more widespread? I remember you said the barrier is that an employee has to be present at all farm stands.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that that we would like to expand. I mean, again, it's sort of a balance because it comes out of the same funding pool as our farmers market programming. But yeah, a big challenge is that the farm stand has to be staffed. You know, there at least has to be a staff person present to swipe the customer's EBT card. So we're working on some workarounds and some sort of strategies, but you know, the large majority of our farm stands are self-serve for the most part. So, you know, like the VYCC farm stand, for example, in Richmond is not staffed, but they have a phone number that a SNAP, you know, shopper can call, and an employee who's nearby will sort of scoot over and help them finish their transaction. So that's been working all right. So it's something we can sort of suggest that people do, you know, going forward. But, you know, it's not always the most practical thing. You know, if you're running a farm and your person could be way on another part of the property, or just, you know, on the phone in an office that's sort of not physically proximate to the farm stand. It's just a challenging thing. And I think it's something that a lot of farmers really come up against is, you know, these programs were kind of built with retailers in mind, you know, grocery stores and small, you know, outlets, and they don't always work terribly well, you know, for a small farmer who's sort of balancing a lot of different enterprises. Been really encouraged by Digger's Mirth's online sort of adaptation. I think that's a system that could work pretty well for other farmers going forward, because you're sort of setting up an appointment when you're going to deliver, or when the customer is going to pick up the food anyway. So so you can have an employee present. It is a little bit of a leap of faith on the farm's part, just because they're not able to get paid up front. You know, and maybe some of these pilots that we've seen nationally will pan out, and instead of just Amazon and Walmart and really big retailers being able to process EBT cards online, maybe some of our small independent stores and farms will be able to do that as well.
I think that is a wonderful goal and hope, and a positive thing to end on, I would say. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Emmett, Caroline, and Emily, for your time. Thank you, Becca Mitchell from Hunger Free, for being our fabulous note taker. We appreciate your time and energy and all you do to help our communities become hunger free. If you do have any follow-up questions or thoughts, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. I'll be sharing contact information following the conference. And this presentation, as well as the recording, will all be shared with conference registrants after the conference. I just want to do a quick mention. The next conference block begins at 1 p.m. And you can find all of the conference details and information on vermontfoodhelp.com. And Zoom links to all of those should be in your email inbox. Thank you again so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.